Welcome back to the WebCast. It is Friday, the eve of the Heisman ceremony, and the college football playoff has been determined. I got Doug with me. Let's talk about it. All right, welcome back to the WebCast, All Sports One Web. The Heisman ceremony is tomorrow, Doug. We have CJ Stroud, Max Duggan, Caleb Williams, and Stetson Bennett as the four finalists for the Heisman. But we have to start with the absence of Blake Corum, someone who I think has been one of the few players who have been consistent all the way through the college football season. And also we've seen how the team has played with and without him due to the little bit of injuries that he's been carrying over the last couple of games. So you could really feel the tangible impact that he has on a team that is undefeated. And so what are your thoughts on him not getting an invite to New York for tomorrow's ceremony?
It really, really stinks because, running backs don't win it enough, and he is such a huge part of our team. He is, not only is he our best player, I think he may be the best player in college football. He is the most impactful in every game. He's got everything. There's no part of his game that he doesn't have. It's tough because I believe we were just talking about this, the other day. The quarterback touches the ball every single play. That's why they always win the MVP. They always win the Heisman. Everything starts with the quarterback. You got the game on the line. You don't just give it to the running back. You have to pass the ball. And I understand. It's just when there's a running back that's that good and makes that big of an impact, I think they have to have a shout. And he would have if he didn't get injured. And that's what's so, just disheartening is an injury in the last two, to be absent from the last two games doesn't discount what he did for the 10 games he did play. So it's tough, but I do understand, he wasn't healthy all season. How can he be considered the best player, whatever, but I'm not too mad about it. Us Michigan fans, we all know how great he is, and we don't need a trophy to, for us and for him to know how good he is and how big of a part he is of our team.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on Tuesday with the NFL MVP as that race is kind of heating up as well. Quarterbacks across the board, like you mentioned, are a part of that conversation. But in college football, and you're right, the quarterback touches the ball the most. So they have the most opportunity to have an impact on a team. A lot of the better teams are usually the identity of the team is their quarterback because of how talented they are and how impactful they can be at times. But really, you talk about Georgia, the first thing that comes to mind maybe isn't Stetson Bennett. You talk about Michigan, the first thing that comes to mind is not J.J. McCarthy. It's Blake Corum. You talk about, Ohio State's offense really as a whole, but CJ Stroud may be the only quarterback there that you really think of them. TCU, you think of like an overall complete team, even though Max Duggan has done pretty well. Caleb Williams as well. That defense has been fantastic. He might be the identity, but Blake Corum is the identity. He has taken over that for Michigan. He is the identity of the team, just as CJ Stroud is for Ohio State, just as Caleb Williams may be for USC. And Stetson Bennett even made it to New York, and he isn't even the face of that team, even though he's been we go back a year ago and Georgia fans were clamoring for him not to even be the starter as they head into the college football playoff. So, and now a year on, he's headed to New York. Great performance, don't get me wrong, but still, I think Blake Corum should have been there. You could see the impact that he has. 1,500 yards from scrimmage this year with 19 total touchdowns as a running back, giving Michigan that identity of if you give us a lead, you'll never come back. It is one of the most dominant teams in college football because of that. 5.64 yards per carry with him there. Absolutely fantastic. But he isn't there.
When I think of Heisman, sorry to cut you off. When I think of a Heisman, I think of like, the Reggie Bushes, the Adrian Petersons, the Archie Griffins, the just supreme athletes, just the best player on the field, regardless of who comes out. There are just, you go to those games to watch that player. That is not Stetson Bennett. That's not Max Duggan. They're great players. They do great. They are good. They're fantastic athletes, all of that. But how is Hendon Hooker not in the Heisman? You know what I mean? How is Blake Corum not in the running? I think they should. I mean, I understand you can't make the Heisman, you can't bring 12 people to the ceremony and all that. But honestly, I hate that it's always just the quarterback of a good team. That's who it always is, because they don't make mistakes. They do everything right. And so, okay, they should be up for the Heisman or the MVP. Yes and no. Yes, they don't do they don't make any big mistakes, but they don't really wow anybody. Are they that valuable? The most valuable player, the Heisman, the best player in the country. I don't see that. CJ Stroud, I can see that. And Caleb Williams, I can see that. They really do have that it factor. But I don't know. I mean, I think we're on the same page here. But I always go back to, the Reggie Bushes, the Adrian Petersons, the guys that you just put the ball in their hand and they will take over a game. Team Tebow.
Devontae Smith.
Yeah, even Tim Tebow. He just the guy could do he could do no wrong at Florida.
Well, so here's the thing. So I totally agree with that. But to determine, you say electric and a playmaker and the best player on the field, but in order to be all of that, at the end of the day, you have to get the win. You have to make the play to win an important game. And for most of these people who have made it to New York, only one of them have won their last game. CJ Stroud ended with 2 interceptions against Michigan. Caleb Williams ended with an interception and a fumble to close out, basically. They had a little there at the end against Utah, but it was just kind of scramble play, and the clock ran out. But basically a fumble and an interception to end his Pac-12 championship game were in a loss. And Max Duggan, who TCU in overtime took the ball out of his hands from the 1 yard line on back-to-back plays to take their first loss of the season. The only one out of the 4 who has in their last game won is Stetson Bennett. So you talk about Caleb Williams. He scrambles all over the place. He must have ran 500 yards in that Pac-12 championship game. He's only accredited for about 35. Why? Because he runs backwards, he runs sideways, he gets sacked for a bunch of yards, 3rd and 35 on that final drive there due to 2 consecutive sacks. I mean, he has good plays, but he also has bad plays. And that's kind of been USC's story, especially against Utah, taking 2 losses against them this year. So I think this year, this class is a very odd class because there is no player that you think going into a game he's going to be the best player, but has he been consistently throughout the entire season the best player on the field? I don't know that we have one in the country that isn't named Blake Corum.
I mean, honestly, if we're going off of that as well, where's Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Marvin Harrison,
the best wide receiver in the league. He may be one of the best wide receivers since Devontae Smith. And granted, that's 1 or 2 years ago, or however many years ago it was, but you don't normally get receivers that are just that good at every aspect of the game. Devontae Smith, just nobody on the field could catch him. So that was kind of what they played off of was, if he's in open field, he's gone. Marvin Harrison is fast. He's strong. And if you throw a ball in the air, he comes down with it.
Yes.
I think
he is
even if his numbers, it's hard because, the Heisman is kind of a numbers game. You do have to put up numbers. Your team does have to win. I wouldn't agree with having a 7-5 team have a Heisman Trophy winner. That's just not right, because how can you be the best player in the country when you're not even on a top 25 team? So I understand that. But, in this case, Corum missed the last 2 games. But what did he do up to those last 2 games? You know what I mean? He got his team to the Big Ten championship. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely a weird year. We'll get into the college football playoff picks here in a second, but let's make some predictions here on the Heisman. So I need who you think should win it and who you think will win it. They can be the same, but we'll see what your thoughts are. You'll give yours and I'll give mine. So who do you got? Who do you think should win it out of the 4 there in New York tomorrow night?
I think CJ Stroud should win it. He was my pick at the beginning of the year. Even in the Michigan game, some of the throws that he made, I feel like only he could have made. I just, no other quarterback in the country and some NFL quarterbacks, I just feel like, wow, they would struggle with that type of throw with just the arm strength, and he has to put it in one spot. And granted, he is throwing it to Marvin Harrison Jr., so he does get a little bit of, help here and there. But honestly, I think he should win it because out of just pure quarterback, I think play calling was his demise. I don't think it was really him.
Wow, shots fired at Ryan Day.
I just think that they don't let him loose enough. I think he is a superior quarterback to anybody else in the country. I think he is electric. They never let him use his legs. That's why you see Caleb Williams have, 372 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. So sure, he had the numbers to back it up. But CJ Stroud he could do that too, but he also had Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams behind him. So he didn't necessarily need to run it in on the 5-yard line. He just let Mayan Williams do it or Travion Henderson do it. I think Caleb Williams will win because he's more electric. He's more fun to watch, and he does put up big numbers. So I think that Caleb Williams will win. CJ Stroud should win because I think he is just a all-around better quarterback. Granted, his last 2 games struggled, but he struggled against, obviously one of the best teams in the country with the best defense in the country. And he didn't have Smith and Jigba, and now he's not going to have Smith and Jigba for the playoff because he decided to just declare for the draft, which with the NIL money, I understand though, you don't want to get hurt. But that does suck. You're not fighting with your team to win a college football playoff, but
we're going to dive into both of those. Yeah, we're going to dive into both of those college football playoffs, the Peach Bowl there in Atlanta, Georgia, and Ohio State, and the Fiesta Bowl out in Arizona as Michigan will take on TCU. So I like that you brought up Hendon Hooker because if he didn't lose to South Carolina, even if he didn't lose, really, if he would have beaten Georgia there, he would have been him going through to the SEC championship game to see what he could do. But really, because his numbers are absolutely fantastic. If you look at 89.6 QPR, over 3,000 yards passing, 27-2 touchdown to interception ratio, close to 70% completion percentage. You saw the damage he's done with his legs. And he actually has a Heisman moment. We always hear this term, Heisman moment. Who's going to have a Heisman moment? It needs to come in a high-profile game. He played very well against Georgia, but he played absolutely fantastic there at home against Alabama and getting that win, going toe-to-toe with Bryce Young and coming up on top at the end of the day was absolutely fantastic. And so he, I think, should have gotten a shout here as well as Blake Corum, for my opinion. But out of the 4 that are there, I actually might have the most unpopular opinion outside of Atlanta and Georgia as a whole. And that is because I think that Stetson Bennett should win it. And the reason why I say that is because your job is to win football games, and your job is to win high-profile football games. And there's only one player that is in New York that has done that. Every single other player in their big moments, they've faltered a little bit. And Max Duggan, give him all the credit in the world, might be the second on that list, that great drive to tie the game up against Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game, get that 40-yard run, the 40-yard run, the 8-yard touchdown, and then the 2-point conversion to tie it up. And coach's decision took the ball out of his hand there in overtime that got them the loss. Maybe that could have been his Heisman moment, and staying perfect throughout the entire season in a Big 12 that you and I have both said is a very good conference from top to bottom. There are a lot of tough teams in there. Maybe that could have got him there, but 50% completion percentage overall for that game in the Big 12 is just not good enough statistically. So I think he gets hit a little bit by that. Where you look at Stetson Bennett, 6 incompletions and 4 touchdowns in the SEC championship game against LSU, who beat Alabama, and all of this kind of stuff. He went 13-0. He's a starting quarterback. He played fantastic this year. He did what he was supposed to do when he was supposed to do it. And he didn't play consistent all year, but none of these guys did. None of them did. How many comebacks did we have to watch TCU go through? And that is because of their poor offensive play in the first half. Mm-hmm. And Caleb Williams has been fantastic. Some could say his Heisman moment was against Notre Dame, where he had a lot of good plays, especially in that first quarter. They went up 17-3. That long run down the sideline where he spins a guy, breaking a tackle. It goes down the line. It was great. And he is an electric player to watch. I think Chris Davis kept calling him the human joystick just because he was able to scramble. But we've seen that before from Lincoln Riley quarterbacks. I don't think that Caleb Williams in the big moments had the performances like previous Lincoln Riley quarterbacks, especially when you take 2 L's to a Utah team and one being in the Pac-12 championship game, despite his numbers being so good. I think Stetson Bennett should win it. And obviously CJ Stroud has had just up and down. I'm going to exclude, people want to point to that Northwestern game. Okay, no one was playing in that Northwestern game. That wasn't a football game in the Northwestern game. That was, how can you handle the wind? Okay, I'm just going to ignore that one. But in the big moments in games against Michigan, maybe the play calling didn't help. Obviously, Trevion Henderson being injured didn't help. The running game, the offensive line didn't help. Jackson Smith-Njigba being injured didn't help. But if you're the best player on the field, if you're in the Heisman race, you do something. You do more than only kicking a field goal in the entire second half at home. You just, in a big game, I can't let that slide. There's no Heisman moment for me for CJ Stroud, and therefore Stetson Bennett has to win it for me. Who I think will win it, though, like you mentioned, Caleb Williams. He's the odds-on favorite now. He's electric when he has the ball in his hands, And his numbers are fantastic. I think he has 4 interceptions to 37 touchdowns in the air, 10 touchdowns, like you mentioned, on the ground, 9 yards per attempt running the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So the numbers are there for him. The wins, however, for me are not. The Heisman moment, I can give it to you for Notre Dame, I guess. That game was getting closer and closer at the end. And he played pretty well against Utah in the Pac-12 championship game, but only 7 points in the second half for him. I mean, who would have thought that in the last 2 halves of CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams, they've combined for 10 points? I mean, that's just not a Heisman level quarterback play from either of them in their last game, in their biggest game, the Pac-12 championship game and the game against Michigan for CJ Stroud. So I think Caleb Williams will win it.
He went against the best defense in the country. I mean, you gotta give some credit though to Michigan's defense. I will. People shut down Peyton Manning. People shut down Tom Brady. And I'm, like I said, he's an Ohio State boy, so I'm not necessarily in love with the guy. I just, I see that I think he's a fantastic.
His talent is there. He is talented. He is as talented as a quarterback that we've had in recent memory by far, maybe ever, in terms of throwing the football. And we've had, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about talented arm talent that has gone through Ohio State over the recent years, especially under Ryan Day in that offense. But you got to get it done. I mean, you look at Joe Burrow when he won the Heisman, he played against some of the best defenses in the country and put up 5 touchdowns against them. You look at Devontae Smith, who went against some of the best defenses in the country as a wide receiver, put up 300 yards receiving, 200 yards receiving on them. I mean, you just show up in these games. You have to have, and And even if you don't, right? Even if you have a knockdown performance, which is fine, especially in weather and that kind of stuff, big moment games, it's fine. But you need to be consistent throughout the year. There's been many times this year that Ohio State's offense was slow to get out of the blocks. The game was close. Losing to Notre Dame at halftime at home is an example. Playing Maryland pretty close there for a little while until they exploded in the fourth quarter from the defensive side of the ball. And so you got to give me one or the other. I didn't get either from CJ Stroud. I don't feel like I got that much from Caleb Williams. I think Stetson Bennett should win it. But Caleb Williams, I think, will actually come home with it. Another quarterback for Lincoln Riley to tout as a Heisman winner now at USC. And that would mean that it is the first quarterback to win it that wasn't going to the college football playoff since 2016. Lamar Jackson did it. So very interesting to see. But I think that's just talks about the year that we had in terms of these big teams. I mean, the fact that Blake Corum didn't get it is surprising to me, but so I don't think anyone has gone out of their way.
If Blake Corum was in this, do you think he wins?
I think he should win. I still don't think he would win, but I think he should win.
Yeah, sorry. So if he was in this over Max Duggan, would you say, I think he should win it? And then we would agree that we think Caleb Williams would still win it?
Yeah. I mean, I just think that's just how it goes, but that's how I feel about it.
Honestly,
you just got to be important. You got to be important the whole year.
I think Marvin Harrison Jr.
He's been absolutely fantastic. He was brought in, kind of got his feet wet a little bit, then bang, burst onto the scene. He's been absolutely fantastic with Jackson Smith and Jigba out. He should win the Biletnikoff Award for the best wide receiver in the country. He's a finalist for it, so he should go ahead and win that. Coming back next year, we will see. I mean, the sky's the limit for the guy. I think he's the best wide receiver in college since maybe Julio Jones type, in my opinion. So I think he's just that kind of dude that you throw the ball up to no matter what, and he's coming down with it. And he's just fantastic. But that was a long-winded Heisman conversation. So let's switch over here to the college football playoff. The Final Four kind of have been named not by choice or by deserving, kind of fell into it with TCU and USC kind of losing, opened the door for Ohio State, maybe in Alabama, maybe at Tennessee. Ohio State does get that fourth spot. Georgia, Michigan took care of business in their games, 1 and 2 there. TCU does stay in the 3 spot, maybe surprising for some. You surprised TCU stayed in the 3 spot after losing to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game? Or you think rightfully so?
No, I think rightfully so, because the next one-loss team is Ohio State, and they didn't go to a championship game. So I feel that you kind of have to keep, TCU lost, but they were in the championship game undefeated, and they lost in the championship game. And then everybody else lost too. So then now you have, the only thing that I could have thought was maybe Ohio State jumping them to 3, but I didn't think that was really fair either, because they lost in their championship game. You know what I mean? They at least made it to the championship game. You got to give them something for making it. So, like, if Ohio State would have made it to the championship game and lost, well, it's a different story because they played Purdue. So then it would have been a big deal if they lost to Purdue, and they should have been dropped out because that's bad. But you know what I mean? There's the next best team is a 2-loss team that didn't go to the championship game. You have Alabama, Tennessee, Clemson. Yeah. Clemson went to the championship game, obviously, but you have Alabama and Tennessee.
Yeah. 2 of those teams lost to South Carolina. So
that's what I mean. You can't put them in over 2 1-loss teams. And the 1-loss Ohio State lost to the Big Ten champion, and the 1-loss TCU lost in the championship game. Mm-hmm. It's just you can't. I think they got it right. And I think they even got the rankings right. Like I said, maybe you could have flip-flopped Ohio State and TCU. But I think they're doing this for maybe the Hollywood story of Ohio State gets beat by Michigan and then they meet in the national championship game. I think they're going for that.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before with the SEC when they get 2 teams in where Georgia, Alabama play in the SEC championship game and then meet again in the college football national championship game, and we saw it again last year as well. Georgia winning it all and avenging their SEC loss to the Tide. I think TCU should be 3 because the team they lost to, not only did they lose in overtime, but they've also beat them earlier on in the season. We talked about avenging your loss. Well, they pre-avenged their loss by beating them in the regular season, going undefeated in the Big 12, playing an extra game. Like you mentioned, I think you can't fault a team for playing an extra game. If they're ahead already, playing an extra game, why are you penalizing them for them to losing to a good team in overtime? And so I like the way that it's set up, which means let's start with the Fiesta Bowl out in Arizona. Michigan versus TCU. Blake Corum, I believe, should be back ready to go for that one. We've seen TCU come back many times. You don't want to be coming back against a team like Michigan. When they have the lead, they do not give it up. They usually stomp a mud hole in you in the second half to make sure you are dead by then. Who do you got?
This is going to be a tough game, and TCU really needs to hope for a shootout because I think that's the only way they could beat Michigan. I think if they don't get ahead in the first half, we have shown time and time again throughout every single game this season, we do not give up points in the second half, and we score a lot of points in the second half. So, I mean, we did it against Ohio State. We gave up 3 in the second half. Well, once halftime hit, it was a super even, very, very tough game for both sides in the first half. It was a great game. And then the second half, everything changed. And like I talked about before, I think Ohio State just didn't change their game plan at all. And I think that was the downfall. And that's why I don't put that on CJ Stroud. I think it was a coach thing, but that's neither here nor there. So for Michigan, if they have Blake Corum back, I think their running game gets started a lot sooner than it did against Ohio State and against Illinois and against Purdue. I think we start running the ball better in the first half, and then in the second half, we're going to, take off like we do. Donovan Edwards did fantastic. He had a cast on his right hand, so he was carrying the ball with only his left hand, never fumbled. You get Blake Corum in that mix. You got fresh legs. I don't see how TCU can stop him, honestly.
Yeah.
And JJ McCarthy actually has been throwing the ball more, and he's really getting into his rhythm because he's kind of been forced into it. And he's proving that he can be that guy. So I look forward to these playoffs because I think he will be ready. He did it in probably the toughest environment in college football, Michigan versus Ohio State in Columbus. You don't get much harder than that, especially as a sophomore quarterback.
First year starting.
Yeah, you just don't get much more difficult. And he played out of his mind. So I think, he's ready for this huge game.
Okay, I just have to stop you on playing out of your mind. Hitting open 40-yard receivers and underthrowing them for 12 total completions is not playing out of your mind, okay? It is called terrible defense.
Scoreboard.
I know. Scoreboard.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
There is
he got
a play.
The job done. Stetson
he
Bennett.
Got the job
he just
done.
Gets the job done.
No. Oh,
I don't know what to tell you.
Gets the job done. I totally agree. And that's why I'm excited. We'll get to my picks here in a little bit, but I'm excited to see how these college football playoff unfolds because, like you said, he goes into Columbus, gets the win, first-year starter. That was definitely going to be the toughest game, arguably the toughest game no matter who they play throughout this playoff. In terms of environment-wise, it's going to be the toughest game. And he came out scoring over 40 points and got the win. You can't ask for much more from your starting quarterback to make the plays that he needs to make.
I'm happy that he underthrew because normally in these bigger games, he overthrows. So the underthrow is the perfect throw for JJ McCarthy. He's just got such superior arm strength. He just can't. It's hard to hone that in. You know what I mean?
That's it. That's exactly what it
is. It's a mental game with him. He can outthrow anybody. So
just to somewhere in row Z,
Exactly.
Yeah. So I agree with you, though. I got Michigan to roll in this one against TCU. I just think that Max Duggan can give all he wants, but I kind of had the same questions with him as I do with JJ McCarthy going into those bigger games. When a team forces you to throw the football, can you make those throws consistently enough to get a win? We see what he can do with his legs. He makes great plays with his legs, but can he go against a Michigan defense that is going to be great against stopping the run and stopping maybe a running quarterback and beat them with his arm enough to score more points than Michigan will, especially with a healthy Blake Corum. Michigan's going to have the ball. They're going to go on their long march of drives. And I think that they're just going to build a lead that TCU can't come back from this time, even though they might be ready to go after losing their first game in the Pac-12 championship game. But I like Michigan in that one as well. Let's now turn our attention to Atlanta, the Peach Bowl, just down the road from Athens, where Georgia will be the number 1 seed hosting, as it's in Atlanta, the Ohio State Buckeyes, looking to bounce back. They haven't played in a couple weeks after suffering that terrible fourth quarter loss to Michigan in Columbus. Who do you got in that one? Do you see the Buckeyes offense coming back a little bit and making that a game?
Absolutely. The Buckeyes are not going to lay over or roll over and just play dead in this game and, let Georgia walk out. There's no way. They're going to go into this game thinking that Georgia's the underdog. That's the mentality they're going to have is we're better than them. And honestly, when you look on paper and you look on just pure athletes, they are as good as anybody. And they will be for the next 40 years. I mean, they have been, they will be. Nobody's going to stop Ohio State from being great. The thing is, can they get it done? They struggled against Michigan. Georgia has a fantastic defense. Georgia has a fantastic offense. They run the ball. And, Stetson Bennett doesn't make mistakes. He just doesn't. If they can run the ball, then I hope that Ohio State makes a change in their game plan. I hope they learned from the Michigan game where you can't just say, go ahead and throw it. We dare you. Okay, well then Stetson Bennett's gonna, rub his Heisman trophy
over the middle.
Yeah, he's gonna rub his Heisman trophy in your face and throw it over the middle. So I think that they do have a chance. I 100% think that they're gonna go into that game. They're gonna feel lucky, that they got in, and I think they're gonna take full advantage of that. I don't, They definitely need to, count their stars because a lot of things needed to happen for them to get in. It happened, and now I think they're going to prove that they actually deserve to be there. Problem is they're playing Georgia. Georgia is so good, and, they're going to be really, really tough to beat. I think this is going to be a close game. I have a really hard time picking against Ohio State because I know how good they can be. But this year, they had too many close games, too many, mishaps, I feel like, just to go against such a solid Georgia team where, I think if they were playing Michigan again, I think they would have a better chance. Just because, one, revenge, and two, they would want to, they know what we're going to do. They know how not to beat us. So then they would change and try and figure out how to beat us. I think Georgia's going to win, but not by much. I think this is going to be a super tight game. It's going to be. It's hard. It's kind of, flip a coin. And if Ohio State comes out as the Ohio State we all know, this is going to be a bloodbath for sure. The only thing is just the consistency, the coaching. I don't know if, honestly, the play calling is what kills me for Ohio State. I think if they had a little bit better play calling, I think they have a solid defense. I mean, they really do. But the play calling on defense was what killed them. And their offense, they have the weapons. If Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams are healthy and you have Marvin Harrison Jr., everybody's healthy, obviously Jackson Smith and Jigba would be fantastic to have, but he had said he's going to sit out. But honestly, I don't know if that you need him.
When you got Julian Fleming, Emeka Buka, and then of course Marvin.
That's Harrison what I mean. Jr. You have probably 3 first-round draft picks if they all were to go. It's pretty tough. But this will be a great game.
This is for me how I felt going into the Michigan game. We said going into the Michigan game, the key for Ohio State to win was to use the energy, go out in the first half and put up points offensively to build a lead, to prepare for the onslaught that was coming in the second half. Despite, we know the offensive line of Michigan is one of the best in the country. We know that Georgia's offensive line is one of the best in the country, both averaging over 5.5 yards per carry. On top of that, makes them a team that can kill you in the second half on the ground, wear you down over the first half, and really capitalize on the second half. The quarterbacks are also pretty similar. They can hurt you with the legs when they need to. The deep ball really isn't always there. They're great at little dump downs across the middle, especially when you talk about Bowers, the giant, enormous tight end that they have there in Georgia. I mean, they all their tight ends are ginormous, but if anyone watched the Netherlands game versus Argentina today, we know what size can do in sports. Georgia has them in tight end positions, and they can hurt you, especially when you look at Ohio State's corners and the performance that they had against Michigan. You mentioned defensive play calling. I mentioned the fact that at one point we had two corners guarding a Michigan wide receiver that fell down. So I don't know if that's play calling or just terrible decision-making. I don't know, maybe a combination of both, but something was not correct there. 12 completed passes from J.J. McCarthy. 3 of them were 40-odd yard touchdowns. I call them touchdowns because if you didn't underthrow them, they would have walked into the end zone. Some of them, they didn't make it. Some of them, they did. So that just, you can't have that. You played it well for Ohio State. If you didn't allow those to happen, it would have been maybe a 20-3, 20-7 lead. You get 1 or 2 more touchdowns, and you can kind of play from a lead that Ohio State maybe wouldn't have given up to Michigan. They would force Michigan to throw the ball more than running it when the game was close there in the third and fourth quarter. And that's what you have to do against Georgia. Now, the problem is you have to do that against a good Georgia defense. And so we saw.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. The
saw
problem
Georgia.
Is they're playing Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah, they have to do it against a good Georgia defense. We saw LSU put up 30 points, even with Jaden Daniels going down there in the third quarter and not playing the end of that game. There was deep ball opportunity there. We saw a good number of balls over the middle, good throws from Jaden Daniels. But Georgia rushes 4. They get pressure with 4 against Ohio State's offensive line. I think that could cause some issues. So, all that said, can Ohio State get a big lead? We did pick them here as the national champs. And I think that the thing that Ohio State under Ryan Day thrives the most on, which, maybe not be true, and I could be shooting myself in the foot because of the whole Michigan game, is revenge. They are good at building up revenge. And I think not only do you have the revenge of thinking, wow, you got lucky to get into the playoff, but over the horizon, there is the revenge about beating Michigan in the national title game. Georgia's going to be sound. They're going to be good. Ryan Day needs to do what Urban Meyer did in 2014 against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl and pull out all the tricks.
Oh, yeah.
There was an end around with Michael Thomas catching from, I can't remember who made that pass, but it was a wide receiver coming over from the right-hand side, taking the pitch and throwing across field to a Michael Thomas in the end zone. I just need a repeat of that with Marvin Harrison Jr., something along the lines like that. Open the playbook, let the playmakers go to work, take that energy, go in there and get a lead to start off with and make Stetson Bennett beat you. Because if you let the offensive line and you let the run game beat you, they will beat you soundly. And so that is the only opportunity. So I like Ohio State in this one, just because. I'm just gonna go with it, and just because. So
hey,
I'm good. And we'll see if they learn. We'll see if they learn from their mistakes. We'll see if they learn.
I'm not necessarily rooting for Ohio State, but I don't necessarily want to see Georgia in the national championship. So it's tough because I don't really want to see either of them. No one wants to see Georgia. Yeah, I don't want Ohio State to win because I'm a Michigan fan, but I don't want to see Georgia because they're great. So I'm good with, if we were making a pick, I would say, yeah, sure, Ohio State's fine because of all of those reasons. Ryan Day normally, disregard this season. Ohio State teams normally come out very, very quick. I mean, they come out flying and you're like, oh crap, we're playing some serious athletes here. and he just lets them
good
loose.
prep of plays.
Exactly.
And
everything
just,
is perfectly sound. They're not committing a whole bunch of penalties. Normally they come out just super fired up. He knows how to get his team ready. And then another thing that I really loved about Ryan Day when he first took over for Urban was at halftime, he made the adjustments. They came out, and if they were down, they played like a different team. If they came out and they were up, they stayed up. And they didn't just keep doing, the same thing over and over unless that's what was working. But, he would figure it out, and they would just normally blow everybody out. Like the Ohio State teams that I'm used to watching are 45-2. Like they just go out and they kill everybody. It doesn't matter who they play. They play Penn State. they put up 45. It doesn't matter. And I know they have it in them. They have the players. It's just, can their offensive line stop the Georgia defensive line? And can Ryan Day get them in the right mindset? Because obviously they're going to be down after losing to Michigan, especially in the way that they did. They're going to feel that they left they left something out there. So that could be used to their advantage, because they're saying, like you're saying, hey guys, we could see them again. We just need to get to them again. And I think they could do it based on all of those things. Problem is, we know Georgia's going to come out ready to play.
Yeah, and you're talking about the defending national champ. No team has defended, I think, since 2011 Alabama, maybe. I think was the last time a team of college football went back-to-back. See if Georgia can do it this year. But we got Ohio State. First half performance that keeps them ahead and gets them the win there in the Peach Bowl, which matches up in SoFi Stadium, Michigan, Ohio State. The game, part 2. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants it. Who do you got if that were to go through?
Michigan again. That's simple. Michigan again.
Oh, that's it.
I think this is the best team we've had in my history of watching Michigan play. This is the best team we've had.
Yeah, a true identity and a. It's hard. It's hard to stop. I mean, you can know it's coming, and you just have to stop it, and nobody can stop it. And that's because you guys are so good. Michigan is so good at what they do.
Now, we finally have a playmaker at quarterback. We had Denard Robinson, but we didn't have the team around
him.
Exactly. Yeah. So now we have the team, and we've been kind of missing that quarterback. We've had really good teams for the past 5 years, but we just haven't had that guy. And I think J.J. McCarthy can be that guy. Maybe he's not, he's still got some, rough edges for sure. But he is showing that he can be that guy. And, we can put the game on his back and he'll make it happen. And I think that he's just going to keep getting better. And I think that's a problem for the country.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about rookie quarterbacks, first year starter quarterbacks. The best thing that you can do is play a game, because the experience that you get from game to game is more valuable than anything else. As he keeps playing these higher and higher profile games, he's only going to get better and better. And, play TCU, another high profile game, make it to the national championship in SoFi, going to be, the biggest game, obviously, of his career. But I think he can, he's going to build to do that. Now, I got to take a little tangent here, because the game is going to be in SoFi Stadium there in LA. For all of you that watched Thursday Night Football last night, we saw Baker Mayfield get off the plane on Tuesday, joining the Rams off waivers after Carolina dropped him. Learn the playbook overnight, over 2 nights, get put in that second quarter against the Las Vegas Raiders, and go on 2 good drives there and late in the fourth quarter and kill the Raiders, sending them straight back to exile. Oh, we're going to get into that. I can't wait for Doug Takes it. Save it for Monday.
I just hate them.
Save it for Monday. Or Tuesday, sorry. Save it for Tuesday's episode. Come join us here on the webcast for that episode where Doug's just going to go into the Raiders, and I'm so excited for it. But Baker Mayfield, okay? I bring him up because he started this madness in college football against Ohio State, and he just pisses me off more and more for it. Back in 18, it was 17, 18. Yeah, here we go, okay? Oklahoma coming to Columbus, and it was 2017, sorry. come into Columbus. Baker plays very well. They get the win there in Columbus. Baker takes the flag, tries to plant it in the middle of Ohio State, in the middle of the field, in the block O. Obviously, it's a turf field, so it falls down, but the whole team goes excited. Yeah. They beat them, all that kind of stuff. And guess who did it 2 weeks ago? Michigan. And it ticks me off. I can't stand it. I don't know where this came from or why it's a thing. No one does this anywhere else. I haven't seen any other team beat any other team anywhere and plant the flag in the middle of the field. But for some reason, teams just have to do it when they beat Ohio State. I don't know. Ohio State doesn't do it to anyone else. Why is this happening? I don't know. Michigan did it in Columbus a couple weeks ago. And I think that video is just going to be rolling through every day in the practice facility, every day on the bus, every day on the plane out to SoFi. And I think Ohio State's going to come and they're going to do, if they do what they can against Georgia, the way that we say to beat them, they're going to be able to do it again against Michigan, maybe even then some for that little bit of revenge factor. So I got to roll with the Buckeyes.
Naturally, you got Ohio State and I have Michigan. And there's no way you're going to convert me to Ohio State. There's no way I'm going to convert you to Michigan. So, guys, put it in the comments.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Who's going to win?
Yeah,
Michigan, the undefeated Big Ten champ, or the just down and out, sad on themselves, just can't believe what happened to them, Ohio State. I don't know. I mean, put it down there in the comments. Let's see what happens. Obviously, it's Michigan. Yeah. Carry on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is my thing, okay? We picked here for a reason for Ohio State to be the national champions at the start of our season. Granted, we picked Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Clemson to make the Final Four. We went 2 for 4 on that one, but our national champion is still alive. And the reason why we picked them to be a national champion is Jim Knowles coming in, creating a better defensive scheme, but mainly the offense and the weapon power that they have. Jackson Smith and Jigba, hamstring issues, obviously not in the playoff. Maybe he'll be feeling healthy after Ohio State beats Georgia and be like, actually, can I come back, please? Maybe it's going to be a whole surprise. Maybe it's just a trick. Day before Georgia, he comes back. Who knows?
Bring him.
Who knows? Okay. Anyway, there we have it. There are our picks here from the webcast. Caleb Williams. Okay.
The reason that I didn't pick Michigan into the Final Four, and I'm going to have to watch that, or the first prediction video. But I'm pretty sure it's because I said I'm positive we're going to start Cade McNamara. And we cannot win a championship with Cade McNamara, who entered the transfer portal, by the way, because he knows he lost his job. So, to be fair.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. He didn't Wait. He didn't just enter the transfer portal. He went to Iowa.
He went to Iowa?
Went to Iowa. He went to Iowa. A team that scores 6 points a game. He went to Iowa.
Oh, wow. I didn't know he went to Iowa. I mean, once he said he's going to the transfer portal because he got sad, boo-hoo, I lost my job. I quit following his career because it's over.
Yep.
Iowa. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He will be. Iowa has quarterback issues. He's going to be a sound, solid quarterback that won't win them anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the harsh truth. Iowa's not a good enough team. I think he could be that Stetson Bennett type where he's just the guy that goes in, doesn't make big mistakes. He's going to put up decent numbers. You let him throw the ball, he's going to be good. But his Stetson Bennett would not be that good if he wasn't on Georgia. If he played for Iowa, Iowa would not be in the national championship.
No, my thing
is no way.
Iowa needs a lot more from offensive standpoint than Cade McNamara. It's just not going to do it.
I mean, even if you bring Hendon Hooker, it doesn't change that Iowa's not going to score. Obviously, it'll be better, but so that's funny to me that he really downgraded like that. And he went to Iowa. You know what I mean? If you want to do that, go to Washington or something.
Yeah.
Penix
Jr., Penix Jr.
Yeah, I don't know. But I lost where I was going with it.
Yeah, sorry. I derailed your whole thought there.
Yeah, you threw me off on that.
You were talking about how you bet against Michigan at the start of the season.
Right. Yeah, that was why I'm pretty sure. if I remember correctly, and if not, it's what I've been thinking for the past 2 years until JJ McCarthy finally got the starting job. We will not win with Cade McNamara. We should have, like you said, a rookie quarterback. How do you get him experience? He's got to play the game. You know what I mean? That's plain and simple. You get experience through playing the game. That's how you learn the most. I was just shouting, you can ask my girlfriend, every single game, why don't we just play JJ McCarthy? We're not going to win anything with Cade. So if we're not going to win anything, let's get the guy that's going to be the future for us, the playing time. And so now through the first 7 games of this season, it was kind of good thing we had a running game because he was progressing and working and knocking off the edges. And then when we finally got to Ohio State, we still just kind of had that question mark. Can he do it? Nobody knew. And we would have known if he would have played all of last year. So
I feel like we still don't know, to be honest with you. I think the team is great and he can lead a team. But we're talking about 12 completions.
Yeah, 12 key completions with 3 touchdowns.
Key completions?
I mean, what else does he need to do when we run for 200 yards in the second half? The
man
didn't need to throw. Agree. What's it mean? What do you mean?
I totally agree, but I need more. That's why
you'll get
Ohio State. I'm ready for it. In SoFi. I am ready. I am ready for Ohio State to plant a flag in the middle of SoFi with Baker watching on and us beating Michigan. It'll be the most beautiful thing I have ever seen ever. I would.
You got to be the sorest loser ever.
I would love it. When it happens, I won't be a sore loser, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, that's our picks here from us at the WebCast. It's been a while since the college football video, so for those who said that I'm a scaredy cat or are going to leave that in the comments, Michigan was the better team. Michigan deserved to win. Ohio State played poorly. JJ McCarthy played very well. The game plan was fantastic. Ryan Day got outcoached. Jim Harbaugh is finally doing what everyone hoped he was doing. He's kind of following the Dabo Swinney path, 8 years in, really making a juggernaut. Bravo, bravo, bravo. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, keep
my
coming,
cap.
keep coming.
But I will see you in SoFi. Adios.
See you guys.